Alright, welcome everybody to the fourth session of our Women's Conference. We are going to go ahead and get it started. So I'm happy to introduce Arnett. So she is a Vice President of Integrated Data Engineering Advancement. She also led the Associate Engagement and IT for many years. She's very passionate about volunteering and getting associates and people engaged in learning opportunities. Some of her passions have been working with the homeless and mobile. So everybody welcome Ms. Arnett.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to have been invited here today. Earlier I saw a Xavier sweatshirt. I lost that person. But I was glad to come up here because my son is getting ready to graduate from Xavier University in May. And so last night I came up early and had dinner and hung out with him. So I was glad to come up to Northern Kentucky this morning. As was mentioned, my name is, I go by AB, but my name is Ann Britton Arnett. Most people call me AB. It's too hard to remember Ann Britton. I am a Vice President in Technology at Humana, and I started out my career sitting in a seat similar to where you all are sitting today. I'm not as brave as Shilpa. I'm not going to walk around the stage. I've got to hang on to my notes, but I hope you find it engaging anyway. When I was in high school in Louisville, Kentucky, at a public school, I randomly took a computer science class, and I rocked it. I found that really interesting, the last conversation that we had about how did you know what your career would be. I had a 104% grade point average in that class at the end of the year. But then I went to college. I went to a liberal arts college in Virginia, at the University of Richmond, and I took a variety of classes, business, Spanish, thinking, what did I want to do? I didn't know. I had no idea. And again, I randomly happened into an intro to computer science class. Again, rocked it, loved it, and decided that I would do it. I would become a computer science major. But guess what? I was the only female in the class. And in all my classes, I was the only one computer science female that graduated from University of Richmond this year. Earlier, Shilpa and I were given a tour, and I hope that the fact that in the computer science wing, everybody was of the male gender up there is because all the females are in here. Hope. But anyway, I felt very comfortable because I have continually been the only female. In fact, in college, one of my classes, I asked one of my professors one day, here we go, I'm going to walk around somewhere. I asked one of my professors one day, when he talked to class, he only ever talked to me. And so it was like this the whole time. And I really felt singled out. Finally, one time I went up to him after class and I said, Dr. Kent, have you never taught any other female students before? And he said, oh yes, I've taught many. I said, well then, how come you only ever talk to me? And he said, it's because you're interested, you're engaged, you're listening. Aha, here I thought I was being singled out for being the only female, but no, it's because I was the most engaged. So keep that in mind. I felt like I had a little chip on my shoulder there, but I didn't need to have it. What I want to talk to you today is about the importance of loving what you do in life. I've done a lot of studying on this topic and know that when people love their job, the whole team is more successful. It's amazing to see how this manifests itself. Another story, one day when I was 14 years old, I was in the bathroom watching my mom get ready. She was so impressive. She was an adoption attorney. She'd gone back to school when I was in 5th grade, gotten a law degree, had a successful practice. And I was watching her getting ready, and she said to me, Ann Britton, one day I hope you have a job like mine where you love going there every day. It's so important because when you love getting up in the morning and going to a job that you love, then you will excel at your job. It's so true, and I often think of that. I've been at Humana 17 years, but before that I had tended to job hop because if I ever got to a place where I was miserable and didn't like what I do, it's time to change the narrative. So, at Humana, I lead large teams of successful leaders. One of my favorite books, I encourage, you'll see a theme of books here, that I encourage all my leaders to read is called Radical Candor. So if you're writing down a good book, write down Radical Candor. In that book, a favorite quote is, "If you want to build a ship, don't drum up people to collect wood, and don't assign them tasks and work, but rather teach them to long for the endless immensity of the sea." Shouldn't we all really long for the endless immensity of the sea? We should always show up with our best selves, and as a result, our best potential will really shine through. My team at Humana builds data products for our organization. We shape data to build it how our customers can use it. I know that sounds a little funny, nerdy. A quote I heard recently is that data people are like plumbers. They need us, but we don't get invited to the party. So that is humbling, because we all want to be in the spotlight, but especially in my organization, we are behind the scenes setting up data for those who will use it and make fantastic decisions that will impact members to improve their lives. Always remember that you may be a building block in life, but that does not mean you're not important. And the title of my talk was Creating Your Narrative. So how can you build your narrative in life? This question has been a challenge to me. As I think about building my narrative, it comes down to confidence. In 2014, I was told that I would be a vice president in IT. It was a voluntold situation, which means I was volunteered to the job and told this was my new opportunity, but I didn't have a choice. I was terrified, and my peer who told me about this said, "AB, you can do this. Those vice presidents put their pants on one leg at a time, just like we do. You can do this." So that analogy made an impact, and I decided to embrace it. I was in a group of 8 folks that became VPs at that time as part of a reorganization. Again, similar theme here, I was the only woman. So I did what I always do. I went and I read some books. One of those books changed my life, and I hope you've read it. It's called The Confidence Code by Patty Kay and Claire Shipman. They have a version for teenagers and a version for people in their careers. My daughter loved it when she was in high school. And in there, they say, no one ever thinks they're born a leader. It's always a stretch. And it should be. I heard this question earlier from you right there. And I looked at Chilton and said I have the answer. So in my research, I learned some startling facts. Did you know that women apply for a job only when they feel 100% qualified? Typically. And typically, men will apply when they're 60%. So we feel like we have to do it all. We have to check all the boxes. It's really not the case. So, keep that in mind. In the Confidence Code, Patty Kay also shares another key concept I've had to learn over the years. This is interesting. She said, when we imagine we're the center of everyone's universe, then it can really hurt our confidence. The fact of the matter is that everybody moved on to think about something else a long time ago, and they're not thinking about us anymore. I was reminded of a conversation with my father years ago. I was newly divorced, 2 small kids, and living in a house that backed up to church friends of our house. I said to my dad, "What do you think they think about me?" And he said, "I doubt they do." I was shocked. We always think that we're at the center of everyone's universe, but we're not, and it's okay. Last week, we had a super stressful day at work. One of my colleagues sent me an email entitled Stress Buster. I really wanted to read that one. I opened it. It was an email from his 7th grader who wanted to run for vice president of the robotics club. But there were 2 other boys running against her. What should she do? And her dad said, you should run against them and try to win. She's a 7th grade female, was wondering her path forward, and was intimidated. So I shared with him a quote I had just read. It said, "Sure, you might lose. So what? Dare to compete." I really hope Monica wins that competition, but if not, she dared to compete. Along this line, we need to know that failure is essential for building resilience. If we don't try, we will never win. So we should try to compete, maybe fail, but maybe we'll be more resilient after the fact. I've learned that confidence is more important than ability. I heard this theme earlier today, when it comes to getting ahead. So we always think we should get the A, and we should, but confidence is more than getting the A. My new head dog at Humana, his name is Jim Ruffin, has asked us to focus on the fact that perfection inhibits achievement. Perfection is the enemy of the good. It's also the enemy of confidence. I carried this message back to the team, and this is a group of STEM students here. In the world of STEM and computer science, we all know this is partially true. I'll share with you my favorite story of my favorite, that's sarcasm, computer science project in college. So I worked so hard on this project. It was a class called Operating Systems. It's the semaphore project. You might have one day. And you had to write this program. It was so hard, it was so complex, and I worked so hard on it. And I turned it in, and it was almost right. And I thought, well, it's not perfect, maybe I'll get an A- or a B+. And he turned it back to me, and I got a D. And I looked at it, and I had missed one semicolon. And I said, a D for missing one semicolon? He said, it's wrong. And, he was right about that. It didn't work. So in the computer world, a lot of times, we find that we have to get to perfection in our programs, or they don't work. So Shoko was telling Richa and Peyton and I earlier about a tic-tac-toe program that she wrote in college. And if she didn't have all the right semicolons and it didn't work, they wouldn't have been able to play tic-tac-toe. So think about that. Several years ago, I worked with a man who lived by the mantra of, you may have heard this term, perfection is reality. It's an interesting concept, and I researched it last week and learned something about the looking glass self. The whole theory behind it. You can look it up if you want. It goes like this. We base our sense of self on what we believe others do us. Then we imagine their judgment of that appearance, and then we develop feelings about and respond to those judgments. So let me play that back again. It's kind of complex. I think in my mind what Shilpa's thinking of me right now. Maybe she's thinking this, or maybe she's not. That's what I'm thinking. She's looking at me and saying, I can't believe you wore that sweater. Okay. That's what I think she's thinking. And then I think she's judging that sweater and saying, I wonder why she thought she should wear that sweater. So then I've already got some preconceived responses to her, like, well, I don't care if you think I wear that sweater because, I just don't have a flowered sweater and it's pretty and short, so I don't wear this one. I'm having fun with something right now. But that's how this concept works, looking glass self. And I do this a lot, for some reason, with my neighbors. Maybe they're neighbors I don't talk to that much, but they think about me. These are people that I don't even know. So, and even not do that stuff, it just brings me down, and there's no point to it. So, reference back to my conversation earlier with my dad, and live your own life. Don't worry about those other people or maybe building perceptions of you. Confidence is not letting your doubts consume you. It's a willingness to step out of your comfort zone and do those hard things. It means getting out of your comfort zone, experiencing setbacks, and with determination, picking yourself up again. Here's one of my favorite stories. In 1984, at the Winter Paralympics in Innsbruck, Austria, A woman named Bonnie St. John won a bronze medal in slalom skiing. She had had her right leg amputated when she was 5 years old. So this was an amazing feat. Remember, she won the bronze. Afterward, Bonnie said this: "I was ahead in the slalom, but in the second run, everyone fell on a dangerous spot. I was beaten by a woman that got it faster than I did. I learned that people fall down, winners get up, and gold medal winners just get up faster." I have that quote on my desk above my computer so I can remind myself every day to try hard things, and if I lose, I will just be more resilient and learn how to get up faster the next time. As a final word to you, I want to share something else that I think is so important. As women, we hear that there is a glass ceiling that we have to bust through. I'll tell you that I do not believe that. I love the concept that it is not a glass ceiling we face. It's a sticky floor. So there are some glass ceilings out there, and we have to identify those and figure out how to bust through them. But our bigger adversary is ourselves, and we need to get ourselves off that sticky floor, not hold ourselves down. We need to jump off that sticky floor. Break the glass ceiling. We should assume positive intent. Nobody is against us, and we're holding ourselves back. I'll tell you a story of how I jumped off that sticky floor. When I was a manager and wanted a director job, I decided I was more qualified than anybody else for this job. I had a mentor who was also a sponsor for me, but he and I conversed about how I could get this job. And he had me do something that I thought was crazy at the time, but I did it anyway. I went home and I sat and I wrote 11 typed pages of why I was the best qualified for the job. 11, that's silly. But it even had stuff about, this is a director job, so it's a more high-level job. It even had stuff like, I have kids and I live in Louisville, Kentucky. He was based in Louisville, Kentucky. I want my kids to finish high school, therefore I'm not leaving Louisville, Kentucky. Like, really, would that be on a job application? No, this wasn't a resume. This was just a write-up of why I think I was most qualified. It had all, the different things I've done and all my qualifications, of course, but, my dad was a doctor of humana in the 80s. Therefore, I've always been committed to humana. All this sort of stuff. Anyway, I went in and I put it on the hiring manager's desk. And they said, "This is why I think that I'm the most qualified for this job." I exercise extreme self-promotion. As women, we are generally tentative to do that. I know I have been in the past. But if we don't toot our own horns, then who will? On Sunday, in preparation for this talk, I recruited Micah, who I mentioned earlier, the 7th grader running for Vice President of Revives. And I practiced my talk on her to see if she thought it was of interest. She enjoyed it, but she also wanted me to bring to you all, and she put together a list. She said you should talk about some different women who have been pioneers in leadership and in their industries, and just reflect on that, and if they can do it, we can do it too. So she brought to my attention Mae Jemison, the first African American to travel in space, who's even been on an episode of Star Trek. Maria Curie, remembered for her discovery of radium and polonium, and her huge contribution to finding a treatment for cancer. Katherine Johnson, featured in the 2016 movie Hidden Figures, and worked for NASA. As I read Micah's list, I was also reminded of some other amazing females. Code Girls, if you've read that book, is a fantastic book about American women who secretly served as code breakers in World War II. Has anyone heard of Catherine Switzer? I doubt it. Anyone? Okay. She was the first female to run the Boston Marathon. She was a well-being champion at Humana for a while. There's a lot of great YouTube videos if you you want to YouTube, look on YouTube for Catherine Switzer. It's Switzer, different than what you might think. So everyone was against her. She had extreme confidence and pushed forward to do what she loved. Nobody wanted a woman to run in the Boston Marathon in 1967. Her bid number was 261. It has become a movement, a nonprofit called 261 Fearless, to help lift women up. At the time, Catherine said, I'm going to finish this knees on my hands and feet if I have to. Because if I don't finish this race, nobody will believe that a woman can do it. Can you believe? I think she's like in her 80s now at least, that she is still running marathons. She's amazing. A famous quote of hers is, life is for participating, not spectating. And then the last great female my husband reminded me of last night is someone probably we've all been watching lately. Anyone know the name Caitlin Clark? Caitlin Clark brought women's basketball to a whole new level recently. So think about that. Granted, she didn't win the title for Iowa, but she did what she loved, and we all loved following her. Great example of resilience. She didn't carry him to the championship, but does anybody know who the #1 draft pick was? Caitlin Clark. So we'll all be following her and look forward to watching her do what she loves. So as takeaway, I want you to reflect on how to carry your narrative forward. There are some basics that you can even start practicing today. And we're all guilty of doing these. So first one is, try not to raise your voice at the end of every sentence. Let me say that a different way. Don't raise your voice at the end of every sentence. Did it sound like I was asking you a question or telling you something I believe in? So be very confident and sure with what you say. Another thing that you can do is avoid words. I'll use them, I have throughout this talk, like, my favorite, maybe you don't know. I was telling my son about this because I love when people say that because I reply, no, I don't know. And you should really, the last thing, we focus on this at Humana a lot, is bring your whole self to whatever you're doing. We encourage people to turn on their video for Zoom calls. Don't multitask. It's called Be Here Now. I have a leader that said the other day he had 75 people on the Zoom call, and of course, 50 of those want to turn their camera off. He said, no, if you're going to be on this call right now, then turn on your video. And if you have something else important to do, like walk your dog, drop your kid to school, go do that important thing, and when you're done, come get on your video call. But that way you're 100% focused to whatever you're doing in the moment. And I've been encouraging people to do that as well. So thank you for having me here today. Can I say my 3 takeaways now? Okay. So what I want you to do is identify an accountability partner. So a buddy, a peer, a friend of yours. Doesn't have to be at this moment, but it'd be great if somebody you're sitting next to. And with whom you can work on confidence building together. So catch yourselves when you're saying, raising your voice at the end of the sentence. When you're saying, or like. And then, did you have to say that? So also, encourage each other to toot your own horns. It's really hard to be like, I did that. We started the day talking about speaking up. But if your accountability partner can help you, maybe you'll get more comfortable with, tooting your own successes. I heard somebody say earlier, you know what I mean? So that's another one. I wrote that down when I heard that. Then I would encourage you, if possible, if you haven't read the book and you want to, Confidence Code by Patty Kay and Claire Shipman. They've got really good YouTube videos. So they're engaging speakers, and I just love watching them. And lastly, really take time to reflect on what you truly love. That question earlier about, being afraid of what if I don't know. Well, you don't know, but you need to continue to reflect on you're doing the things that you truly love. I know I do that every day, so I hope you do as well. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. All right.